This is Joey Funk Jr., and you're listening to Count It Out. You get more information, good information, and hard to find in professional wrestling, honest information about the wrestling business.
Listening to Count It Out with Mike and Tyler.
Well, we are live, pals, and welcome to another edition of the Bill Apter Sealed of Approve Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. And it is not just me this week, and it is not just my good friend Mike this week. We have a full house this week, but not just a full house. It is a full house of wrestling royalty. Let me introduce our guest first. We have the son of one of the greatest heavyweight champions and wrestlers on God's green earth. We have the Mr. Justin Race, son of Harley Race here. Justin, thank you for taking some time to be here tonight.
It's good to see you. Good to see you all. Bronwyne, hello out there in TV land.
And of course, we have returning for what I believe is a record on Count It Out, but I will have to get fact checking on that one for the fourth time, I believe. One of my very good friends, the one and only Dynamite doll, daughter of the Dynamite Kid, Bronwyne Billington. Bronwyne, what is going on?
It's so good to be back, you guys.
That's it. We're going to make you an honorary co-host soon, I think, Bronwyne.
No kidding.
Might as well.
No kidding.
Well, this is kind of a really fun and unique dynamic here. Both your dads, incredible professional wrestlers, two of the best to ever do it. And Justin, I'll start with you on this one then. And then I kind of want to get to know a little bit of the history of you and Bronwyne together. Did you guys know each other when you were younger? Do you guys have any memories of hanging out at the shows together?
Well, no, at her mom's house.
Oh, okay.
She was a little girl.
It'd be my parents' house at that time.
What's that?
It would be my parents' house at the time.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. You're real little.
Yeah.
So we met then, but as far as connecting, we just started talking to each other a couple weeks ago. Somehow through a mutual friend, we got each other's numbers, and it's very.
Mike.
What's that?
That's right.
Yeah. That's right.
Mutual Mike, we call him here.
Mutual Mike, I like that.
It's always nice when you get older. Like I talked to Ross and Marshall Von Erich often, and it's always when I start talking with someone like Bronwyne or Ross or Marshall or whatever, you have so much in common before you said hello.
Yeah. Like you already get it.
You can tell your friends in graphic detail what it's like to watch your dad get hit over the head with a chair and blood flying everywhere. But only Bronwyne and me and Ross and Marshall and got people like that know what it feels like in here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're 7 years old and your dad looks like he's about to bleed to death.
Yeah, that's that's something I could never relate with. If I saw like my dad have a scraped elbow, I'd probably be like, "What the hell, Dad? Are you okay?" Like, and your guys' dads are starting riots at the Calgary Pavilion or in St. Louis, and they're like, that's a different world for sure that I don't understand.
I paste pictures with blood running down my dad's face, and I always say this is a successful night at the race house. Even though Dad looks like he just went through a windshield of a car.
Bronwyne, it's got to be kind of cool too, like, knowing how much respect that your dad had for Harley, and here we are all these years later.
That was mutual.
Mutual respect. Absolutely, it was. Absolutely. And now you guys are like connected and forming your own friendships, just like your dad's were. That's really cool to be a part of, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's meant the world to me connecting with Justin. It was like, we were always meant to be friends. And as soon as we met each other, we felt like, I don't know, just really special. So Mike, I thank you for the connection.
Yeah. Of course. Well, there's so much unspoken things that I don't need to tell her or Ross. I don't.
Yeah.
yeah, I can just say Dad worked with somebody, and they can imagine what happened.
Right.
Yeah, we don't. So it's but it is kind of. I mean, it's probably one of the most unique, if not the most unique childhood of any professional athlete, celebrities, or anything. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean, it's the darndest thing. I mean, to be the sibling of a son or daughter wrestler. There's not that many of them, so there's not that many of us.
Hmm.
That's
Like
right.
the Kansas City Chiefs, there's 60 people on the football team. They each have 2 kids. There's 120 kids. Basically, their dads do the same thing.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
No, neither did I.
One at a time.
Well, especially to make it at that elite level that both your dads did as well, right? Like, there
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of people that are in the business, and especially nowadays, there's a lot more looseness with people getting in the business. But at that standard, both your dads were trendsetters. They're people that are looked up to and have changed the way that people look at wrestling in general now.
Yeah. Well, Tom was just a dynamite isn't even a big enough word to describe him. And he was just like a spring bouncing around the ring. Dad always complained about never being able to get a hold of him. Um,
I love that.
damn it. Um, so it's you can't describe it. It's just one of those things where she knows, I know, and we try to do our best to tell others what about it.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting way to live,
That's interesting because
and very blessed.
I'm now picturing you now being younger and watching Dynamite work, and that must be crazy. And even meeting him that behind the scenes and stuff. But you, Bronwyn, meeting Harley as a young girl, a very young girl, he's this tough, grizzled, maybe even scary old man. Not old man, but older than when you're little.
The raspy voice.
With the raspy voice and probably the cigar
Onward,
and
come here.
the whole deal. Do you remember any impressions of Harley as being a little girl? And did you find yourself scared of him, or was he just, you saw so many characters back there that it's just another wrestler?
Well, I had the LJN dolls. So, and when I have a picture, I'm sure you guys have seen it, and we'll show it with this interview where I'm sitting on his lap. He's at my house with my dad, and he actually put his hat on, and I'm sitting on his lap and took the picture. So I
Proud.
think that I was very familiar with who he was because I had the dolls,
Right.
and I don't remember being scared, and that was my life. There was always wrestlers coming and going. There could be giants, there could be midgets. Like you just never knew what you were going to see at the house. Um, but yeah, I think I probably thought he was a real king because he put the hat on. It's pretty cool. There's just a king in my house. Just like
What country? What country?
princess, so
As I have to make sure over and over again, Bronwyn, to tell my sister and my mother, they were action figures for us, okay? They were not our dolls. They were our action figures,
you know what? I
okay?
used them. The wrestlers were my Ken dolls to my Barbies,
Well,
so
there you
Oh
go.
wow.
There
and
you
it
go.
made sense because the Barbies would be taller, but my mom was taller than my dad, so I was like, this is normal.
Does that mean that you invented the forbidden door then, Bronwyn? Because we had the WWF and Barbie. Are you the
There you
first
go.
one?
There
Absolutely.
you
I love
go.
me.
That was where the Mattel
Colliding
relationship
two
started, I
worlds.
guess.
Yeah.
A lot of things I want to talk about tonight are going to be aimed at both of you. A lot of the conversations will be both of you. But for a second, I want to focus on Justin for a minute because earlier in the week we were able to talk to Brian Blair. He had a great interview right here on this show, and we had a great conversation about your dad. He had beautiful things to say about Harley. Told a great road story about him. Really had a good laugh about it. And we discussed the fact that this summer, the Cauliflower Alley Club is going to be honoring your father with the Wrestlers Award. What is this award, being a posthumous award, he's obviously not here to enjoy it. This is more for you and his fans and the rest of your family. What does this award mean to you? And did you have any talks to Brian about it?
Oh, well, yeah, we had several talks about it. In fact, last year at Cauliflower Alley is when we kind of came up with the concept.
Okay.
Because he said, your father needs another award here. I said, all right. And we came up with this. But let's see, last October when I got this Hall of Fame ring from the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, was the first time I had ever accepted an induction or an award or anything of my father's on behalf of him.
Mhm.
So it was really special. Of course, I receiving it himself and me being in the crowd, but things, the way they are, he's dead, been dead almost 6 years. So, it's an honor. It's not mine, it's his. I'm just a voice. But I can provide some historical reference and, behind the scenes Harley that no one knows about, and all the things that he and I used to did. He took me when I was young enough to learn how to fish. My dad wanted to teach me how to fish, took me fishing. We went out for 3 or 4 days in a row. This is a very short version. We went out several days in a row, didn't catch a fish. So Dad went into town. This is down at the Lake of the Ozarks. He went to this hardware store that he bought illegal stuff out the back of, like chloridane and bug killers, all that stuff that they've discontinued and made illegal. Well, he could buy it out the back and fireworks. So the next morning we get up, I load up the boat, and he's got this paper bag in his hand. We go out there. I start to get the rods out. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm getting ready to fish." He pulls out of his bag a half stick of dynamite, duct tape to a rock, lights it up. He said, "Now, when I tell you to hit it, hit it." Lights it up, throws it in the water, hit it. So, bam, I put the throttles on the stops. Off we go. I just keep going. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. And he said, "What are you driving back to Kansas City? Turn around, go back there." Well, all right. So we went back and where he'd thrown it, and there's about 15 fish floating there. And he said they're shocked. They're not dead. The concussion under the water shocks them. I'm like, oh, and my eyes are like this big around, whatever. Finally, he said, "Hey," I turned around. I said, "What?" He's got a net in his hand. He hands me the net. He said, "Are you going to fish or not?"
One way to get it done. Uh,
That's
Justin,
amazing.
Justin, you touched on something there, and I wanted to shift it over to Bronwyn. You said that it was the first time that you got to accept award on your dad's behalf. And
Mhm.
Bronwyn, we're seeing your dad get it, all these awards coming his way now. I know you were in Philadelphia last year at the ECW Arena accepting an award for him. I know that you were with our mutual friend Ben Veal on the Wrestling Life, just accepting a Hall of Fame award. What's it like for you to get up there and accept these awards on behalf of your father? I know your mom's with you a lot as well, right?
Yes, my mom came to Philadelphia with me. She was just there for support, but I was the one that accepted. And this past weekend, we just filmed with Ben Veal, as you mentioned. So we just did that on Saturday for Wrestling Life Hall of Fame. And it's great because I know that, this is all inching towards, the big goal, which of course is the WWE Hall of Fame. So every bit of momentum is helpful, and we're just really excited that we can really feel the momentum happening this year.
I
That's
feel like it's
awesome.
just closer and closer that we're getting to that moment. I feel like, especially with your dad, Brom, when I know that everyone had like a bit of a controversial opinion about him for some time there, but I really think, and a big part thanks to you and some of these documentaries, maybe like Dark Side of the Ring, that people are seeing the other side of your
Mhm.
father, like the real side of him. You know what I mean? And I think it's just a matter of time before he gets all these accolades that he truly does deserve.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. I mean, there's a lot of big projects in the works, and it's already shaping up to be a really exciting year. So I don't suspect that it'll be this year, the Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame, but I certainly think in the future it'll happen.
That's why I love what we do because we're able to talk to so many people that knew guys like your fathers and all around, and we get these stories. Like I said, we just talked to Brian Blair, and the Bees have a hell of a history with the Bulldogs. So to be
Mhm.
able to talk to somebody who had so much respect for both Davy Boy and your dad, and hear these stories, even without a Hall of Fame, these podcasts and documentaries and stuff like that, I feel are really keeping these stories alive, and they keep going and recircling and stuff like that.
Totally.
And that's why I love a guy like Ben Veal who's doing that. Ben Veal helped us out big time right here on the show. I'll pull the curtain back. Just this morning, we talked to Mark Merrow right here on Count It Out, and that was all thanks to Ben Veal. Guys like Ben Veal are helping, you know, these amazing legends keep their stories alive. And
Yeah.
as
Well,
long as
about
we keep,
5 years ago. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Justin, please.
About five or so years ago, I started noticing the guys that would tell me that my father was their favorite wrestler, and I said, "How old are you?" He said, 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like way retired before you even what? How? this is some years ago. And they said YouTube. And I said, oh, really? So I started looking at it, and what I've seen is a resurgence of old school wrestling. It's becoming popular again.
100%.
Yeah.
People,
It's easier to
people
access.
have a, they have, well, then they have a choice of product. They have WWE, they have ACW, and then they can watch old school. And they start watching these old matches of Tommy or my dad, or just absolute awesome matches that they were. And people look at that and they look at today's product and it's like, what does a 10-foot ladder have to do with wrestling?
Yeah.
There's a 10-foot ladder sitting in the middle of the ring. I was like, what the hell? So old school wrestling is making a resurgence, and people like my dad and her dad and many others are like the face of old school wrestling. My father was the face of old school wrestling. Bob Geigel, Bob Brown,
Yeah.
It's
all
all
those
about
old guys. And then just a little bit later, the big teams like Dynamite and Davey and the Killer Bees, and Brian's a heck of a guy.
Mhm.
beautiful
guy.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have gotten to know him this year. And it's all about you talk about the access. Like there's so much access from YouTube to now Netflix and everywhere. You can find all this older wrestling. I have a 6-year-old son, and if you were to ask him right now what his favorite wrestling match is, he's either going to tell you Tito Santana versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 9, or I think it's Owen and the Bulldog. Oh no, Owen and Yokozuna versus Bulldog and Lex Luger. Like
So
he's
fun.
a 6-year-old kid, and these are his favorite matches.
Yeah.
These are the matches that he asks me to keep watching, because he'll look at my DVD collection and stuff like that and be like, "This is what I want to watch."
What I get most often
very
from
cool.
people that are 20 something to 40 something or whatever is a lot of nostalgia. They
Mhm.
might watch what happens today Saturday morning at 10 o'clock when they were a little boy. They sat down and watched it with their dad or their grandpa.
100%.
Absolutely.
And so they're seeing the product from today, then they're remembering what they used to watch with grandpa, and it's like, oh, I like this stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Justin, I want to touch on something you said, Justin, and I want to ask your opinion on something. You said that you have a lot of people come up to you in their early 20s and say that your dad was their favorite wrestler. Well, somebody that's a very famous wrestler in his own right, and many regard as one of the greatest of all time, Shawn Michaels, he recently just said that your dad was on his Mount Rushmore of wrestling. How does that
Uh-huh.
make you feel to hear something like that? I think it was your dad and Tully Blanchard were on there, and I can't remember the other two off the top of my head, but yeah, your dad
Usually
made.
there's a Funk or a
I think
Briscoe
Rick
up
was
there,
on there for sure.
I think
or
yeah,
Flair.
Flair would have been
Yeah.
on there, yeah, and I just think that's
Wahoo McDaniels was
Wahoo McDaniel. That's it.
Wahoo.
Wahoo, Ric Flair, Harley Race,
and Tully.
And Tully.
Yeah.
My mom, when I was 3 or 4, my mom had a theme birthday party for me, and it was Native American, and she had Wahoo and his son show up in their full, uh, regalia or whatever you call it. The
Yeah.
whole thing scared the hell out of my friends. I had kids running everywhere in the house.
But that's
And
normal
finally,
for us.
Yeah,
it
that's just Uncle Wahoo for you, right?
took him about 10 minutes, but finally Wahoo got them all laughing and fun. First fucking kids ran everywhere.
That's hilarious.
It's something else that you guys both have in common too, and I'd love to hear both of your experiences with it. And Bronwyn, I'll start with you on this. Was both your dads were featured on Dark Side of the Ring, and I'd love to hear what both your guys' experiences was like working with Dark Side of the Ring, and also how you felt the final products came out, and if you were happy with how they represented your fathers.
Go ahead, Bronwyn.
Yeah, I was happy with it overall. Of course, it's always hard to watch because it is called Dark Side of the Ring, so we knew
Yeah.
what we were in for. We were prepared for that, but the whole time the producers were really what's the word? Considerate of how we wanted it to look. They emailed with us back and forth a lot, making sure we were happy with things and asking us questions. And I mean, my mom is pretty clear that she wanted to make sure it was portrayed the way we wanted it to be portrayed. So they were really good at keeping in touch with us and answering questions whenever we had questions. And overall, I was really happy with how it turned out. I mean, I don't know about your season, Justin, but ours was during COVID. So my only complaint was like we weren't allowed to film together. And my sister and I,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
we got emotional, and especially for my sister. She had never met our dad. My dad left when my mom was pregnant with my sister. And so this was huge for her to like come out and do this interview. And it was like her first big thing that she did, kind of a healing process for her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was crying, and I couldn't be in the room to like console her. And that was just the only thing that really,
Oh,
and it was really, really strict COVID lockdowns at the time. So they wouldn't even let us like,
chalk one more thing up to COVID. Jesus.
yeah. So that's the only thing that wasn't great for us. And like the lighting and stuff, like I hate to be, high maintenance or whatever, but I was like, I look so terrible in those interviews.
now.
You
But
did
also,
not.
yes, they did.
I'm not sure that's possible, Bronwyne.
No,
But also
no.
they had dim lights because they're trying to make it like really dark and
Dark
sad.
side.
And so yeah, of course I didn't like how I looked, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
How about you, Justin? How did you feel about your season?
I think it went really well. I too had some reservations. I mean, there's some inaccuracies and there's some exaggerations. I hate wrestling. That's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Get a wrestler to tell you a really true story. It's tough. Um,
We've interviewed enough of them. Yeah, we know.
You're like, what? So I liked it. And again, like, was it Dave Hodge, maybe, that talked to you, or John Brosher? Anyway, they were very, 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 like you said, constantly going back and forth. And
Yeah.
is this okay? Is that okay? And when it came around to the sending the pictures and whatnot, Mom has kept every picture since the day my mom and dad, before I was born. And I used to have a lot of magazine and whatever photographers come to the house. And this is back 70s and 80s. It wasn't just a camera and a guy. Back then it was a sound man, cameraman, and the on-air talent, a producer, and all these people show up at your house. And I forgot what I was going to say.
Sending pictures.
Oh yeah. So they'd come in and they'd take hundreds and hundreds of pictures of us acting like we're playing pool, or us acting like just normal house things. And afterward, they'd always say, "Do you want all these pictures?" My mom would always say, "Yeah." So we have literally tens of thousands of pictures and Super 8s and VCRs. We sent it all to Vice TV. And
Yeah.
it took them a while to go through it all, but they found what they like. And in fact, they are up for I don't know what it's called, maybe, in Canada, like the Academy Awards or the Emmy Awards or whatever.
I don't know the exact name of it.
The Vice TV episode about my dad is up for an award for research and
Oh, nice.
in other words, all the stuff that my mom provided them. So I thought that was pretty
I want to
cool.
watch your dad's again. Now that we've
Yeah.
reconnected, I want to watch it again. I mean, not reconnected, connected.
Reconnected after 40 years or more.
That's crazy. Well, and speaking of connections, though, there was a big connection that Harley had with Calgary and with that Stampede territory. He did a lot of work for Stu up there, but he also was very connected to one of the most emotional matches, in my opinion, in the history of wrestling, and that was the Owen Hart tribute match. That was in St. Louis, I believe, and it was Chris Benoit against Kansas City. Sorry, Kansas City, and that was Benoit against Brett in a tribute to Owen. I'll start with you maybe on this one, Bronwyne. Do you have any memories from that match, or even some Owen stories you'd like to share? If not,
Yeah, no, I don't have any memories of that match. Sorry.
you should definitely go out of your way to rewatch it if you have some time. It's a technical masterpiece, and Harley gave a beautiful speech at the beginning of it, honoring Owen.
Yeah, my dad announced him to bring him into the ring. Well, after Owen died, Dad rode to the hospital with him and called Stu and told him Owen was dead.
Oh,
No,
jeez.
he was the one. Wow.
And he went up and stayed with Stu for about a week after that.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Was he at the funeral then? He must have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, I know. Harley had a great deal of respect, it seemed like, for Stu and the whole family. They did great business up in the pavilion there.
He had this much respect for him. He used Stu's address in Canada to get a Canadian driver's license.
Wow.
So whenever he was in the States and he'd get stopped going however many 100 miles an hour he was going, he'd just give him the Canadian license, say good luck. You can find my insurance and all that stuff in Canada, good luck.
That's
Oh,
so funny.
that's so great.
I want to ask you guys another question, and I'll start with Bronwyn on this one. You guys, going back to that Wahoo McDaniel story that Justin told, to all the kids were freaking out, but to him that was just, oh, it's Uncle Wahoo or whatever. What wrestlers can you remember that you were like friends with or were really kind to you when you were younger that you hit it off really well with?
Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth. So I was always backstage with them. And of course, I idolized Miss Elizabeth. She was just so beautiful and all her beautiful dresses. And so they didn't have kids of their own. So we were always hanging out with them um, and kind of attached to Miss Elizabeth, like my cousin Jade and I. So that's Brett's eldest daughter. And they used to send me birthday cards. So I was kind of like an adopted child. They would send me birthday cards.
That's
That's
amazing.
nice.
How about you, Justin? I know you mentioned Wahoo, but do you have any other memories of any of the boys being really cool to you?
Oh yeah. Well, let me think. Well, I mean, yeah, I Dad was who he was, and he controlled the Central States, and then of course, he was world champion. So I was always in the dressing rooms and the locker rooms with the guys. So I always got to see all the goings on back there, and it was crazy. Well, actually, that reminds me of a story. Tommy Dynamite, he was kind of like my dad's manager slash antagonist. Not toward my dad. He made other people antagonistic toward my dad. He loved to pick on the young guys. And anybody that's been in the business for an hour and a half knows not to screw with Harley. But Tommy he'd get them all juiced up. Oh, come on, go over, take the old salt. See, I was called him an old salt. And you know what that means from England. He's an old man. You just take him. You take him. Well, the guy that he was talking to was a Canadian strongman. He won the Canadian strongman competition. How he won it was he picked up two paint cans with his fingertips that weighed 200 pounds each and walked 50 yards, whatever. So he broke into the business. He's new. Tommy starts egging him up. Go try hard. Try hard. Come on, you got to. And Tommy won't leave you alone until you go do it. And Dad knows it's coming, so Dad just. So this big old behemoth of a guy walks over. Dad's sitting in a chair, got a cigarette in his left hand. Guy pokes him real, disrespectful because Tommy has told him basically that Harley's an idiot. It's like, hey, I hear you got a pretty good grip. That's not fair. The guy stuck his hand up. Dad took the cigarette, left hand, put it in the right hand, put his hand up like this, never left the chair, and you could hear the bones cracking and breaking and crunching in this guy's hand as he turned him over and had him dancing on his tiptoes. And then he ran off screaming and crying and whatever. And oh God, Tommy and Davey were laughing their asses off. That's so funny.
I feel,
Oh, I got another locker room thing. This is a direct Harley Tommy as it relates to actually Rufus R. Jones.
Okay.
okay. Manager, yeah.
Yeah. Rufus R. Jones once kicked my dad in the side of the face, and it completely flattened the side of his nose. I mean, it was just flat. Boom, flat. Dad is sitting in the dressing room afterward. He's looking in the mirror. Hand me that pencil. So I handed him a pencil. He looks in the mirror, sticks the pencil up his nose, and cracks his nose back out. He looks at it again, looks at me. Does that look straight? Yeah. All right. He went and got in the showers. Years, decades maybe later, same thing happens to Tom. I don't know who he was wrestling, but his whole nose got crushed on the side of his face. He's sitting there in the dressing room looking, and he looked at my dad, and Dad said, I can fix that.
A pencil.
Oh, you blanky, you can't fix shit. He said, hand me that pencil.
Oh, God.
Tommy said, look at me. Get your damn arms down and look at me. Tommy's like this. He just jams the pencil up there and pulls it out.
Oh, gives me goosebumps.
Oh.
Now, quit telling those kids to come over and play Mercy with me.
So I don't know if maybe maybe the answer will be the same, maybe it'll be different. We just talked about personal experiences, people who are nice to you, but let's flip it over to your fan side. Obviously, both of you were wrestling fans. Outside of the fact that your dads did it, you enjoyed watching the product. Did you have a favorite wrestler, and you can't say your father? Just let's start with you.
What age?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Bronwyne. I didn't think of that. Let's
do two ages. Do the young age and then maybe the teenage age, because that's when things change a little bit.
I have to start with Andre, but one of the reasons is what you asked a while ago, the wrestlers that were nice. Andre used to come in town and stay at our house, even when he wasn't working. He'd just come in and stay in Kansas City because he liked hanging out with my family, I guess. And there was a clothes store here in Kansas City that made him clothes. It was a big and tall man, but they actually handmade all his clothes.
Yeah.
So he'd come in town and Dad would take him there. Well, a couple of days before he'd come in town, he'd call down. It's called Michael's. He'd call down to Michael's and he'd say, "That big son of a bitch is coming in town again. Get ready to make some boat covers."
Wow.
Great.
So Andre was always fun. Oh, and I took Andre to show and tell once at school.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous.
That's awesome.
Come on.
You know who was scared? You know who was scared to death of him?
Everybody?
The principal, assistant principal, and all the teachers. The kids had a ball. Yeah, he was a big jungle gym. He'd stick his arms out and like 3 or 4 kids hanging off each arm. So I liked Andre. He was fun.
How about you, Bronwyne? You got a couple favorites from your time?
So as a younger kid, it was Shawn Michaels in the Rockers.
Makes sense.
I had a big crush on him. And they were fun. They were colorful, their gear and tassels and energy. So yeah, it was Shawn Michaels, but in high school, I was all about The Rock.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. See, I get,
and I'm sure your dad didn't hate the fact that you love the Rockers at all.
Yeah, I might put a little extra.
I'm sure Uncle Brett doesn't appreciate that answer. But...
See, I can relate to you, Bronwyne, because when I was younger, my favorite was Brett and your dad, and then as I got older, my favorite became Lita. So, had a good little crush on her too when I was younger.
Dwayne would come in when Rocky Johnson would wrestle here in Kansas City. Dwayne came in town often when we were little kids. And he and I used to play backstage, wrestle around, or we'd poke through the curtains and see what our dads were doing and try to emulate it on the hardwood floor in the back. Throw the football around. Yeah, we were pretty good friends when we were kids.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Now, both of your families, from what I've done some research, I don't know if it's true or not, but both Harley and the Hart family, they both were known for big cookouts. I know
I've heard that too. Yeah,
I've heard every time that they rolled through Kansas City that Harley would always have a huge barbecue for everybody. Mm-hmm. And in Canada, we're a couple Canadians here, so we know all about the famous Hart Sunday dinners. Justin, I'll start with you on this one. Do you have any memories from any of these Harley Race famous barbecues that you can talk about?
Well, there's two. When I was younger, he'd have all the guys would come over to our house after the matches. So that's when my job, starting when I was 12 until I don't know how old I was, whenever they had one of those parties, my job was to run back and forth from the refrigerator to Andre bringing beer.
That's a full-time job.
Just bring a wagon with you.
You hear all the stories. He drank tall boys, 16 ounce, and you couldn't see the can in his hand.
Right.
And I gave him at least 100. I don't know how many. I lost count after 100. But that was my job. Well, there was only one place my dad would allow him to sit. It was we had this basement that had like a dance floor and a bar and a pool table room, media room, and all this kind of stuff. But it was a 7-foot ceiling. So Andre's 7'6". So he gets down there. He's bent walking around like this, trying to get somewhere. And there's only one chair my dad had let him. You remember those old church pews, those 3-person wide solid oak church pews? He let him sit on that because he wouldn't break it.
There you go.
Because he broke all the other chairs. So did Leon Vader. He broke all the chairs too. Andre'd sit down. Justin, you bring me beer. And that was my job for the rest of the night. So it was always fun. Those were interesting. the barbecues when I was later, the funniest thing about those barbecues, I mean, my dad had hundreds of chicken breasts and slabs of ribs and whatever, and there's 12 people here. And I later, like weeks later, hopefully not weeks later, but a long time later, you'd find plates of food filled up and hidden like in the linen closet or whatever. The guys that come and fill up a plate go hide it and then they'll fill up another plate because I want to make sure they had enough. So you find hidden food all over the house. Pieces of pie, brisket, everything.
Justin, you mentioned the name Vader.
Mm.
It's interesting because your father obviously was very an integral part of Vader's career, especially during WCW. We saw on the dark side, and we've heard shoot interviews all over the place. He was a very polarizing figure. A lot of people say very beautiful things about him, and some people say not the greatest things about him. Do you remember what your dad's opinion was of Leon?
Well, in all honesty, he called him that big fat son of a bitch to his face. That's what, hey, you big fat son of a bitch, come here.
At least it was to his face.
And I'm sure it was responded with a yes, sir, every time as well.
Yep.
Dad was put with Vader solely because Vader was hurting people. He's 450 pounds, 6'8", stronger than God. And he was hurting people. And people were getting tired of it. And so they put Dad in there, and Dad, if you watch some of those matches really closely, you'll see that my father is spending more time protecting the other guy while acting like he's coaching Vader.
Right.
But he spends most of his time protecting the other guy because once he said that when Dad and he were about to walk out and Vader's name was announced, goosebumps on his arms would well up like half an inch. That's how like much adrenaline he got just from walking out to the ring. And you have that much adrenaline in the 6'8", 450-pound beast, you better have someone in there to stop him.
Bronwyn, before we keep going on, I want to go back and hear about any of these famous Hart family Sunday dinners as well.
Yeah. So Stu was always in charge of the meat. So it'd be like, big roast or whatever he'd be cooking. And I think it was his daughter, Georgia. She'd make the iced tea. And it would be like just the powdered iced tea, but it was like the famous iced tea as kids that we just loved it. Like super, super sugary, It was the best.
That's where it is.
Yeah, but there's always tons of people. So there was like two very large living rooms with like long tables, probably fits 24 people at each table or something. And there'd be tons of people. There'd be wrestlers, there'd be family. Usually the kids were all in one living room or running around playing in the wrestling rings. Yeah, that was a typical Sunday.
Wow, that's so fun.
Of course, the dungeon downstairs, we might creep down there.
Justin, do you know if your dad ever made his way down to the dungeon or if he has any fun Stu Hart stories that he shared with you?
Yeah, we both did many times.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Well, besides the one about using Stu's address for a driver's license.
That's a great story.
That's right up there with, questionable legality and all kinds of things on that one. No, they were just wonderful, good friends. They were a good family. But I always looked up to my dad a lot. In fact, my dad's book, King of the Ring, Brett and I wrote a foreword for it. So that was pretty cool. To have the both of us, one from hit kind of dad's wrestling business and the son side of it, giving family perspective. But they were just a good family.
There.
What's that?
Always lots of characters there.
That's yeah. Sure. So yeah, Stu was always a good guy. I don't know. It seems like as generations get farther down, the honor and integrity and respect and the things that went with old school wrestling seem to be dwindling and diminishing. And I mean, these guys nowadays, tell you, Dad was sitting next to Tony Atlas doing an autograph thing. This is 20 years ago or whatever. And Dad was holding up the line. They wanted him to hurry up. And he turned to the guys and he said, these people pay a lot of money to come and see us wrestle. Some of them take money out of their savings or worked overtime to bring their kids to see us wrestle. If they want an autograph, they get a good autograph that you can read. And Tony told me that just recently. And ever since then, last whatever, Tony's always just made nice autographs. Some of those guys just screw. You can't tell who it is.
Yeah, they're getting lazy on the autographs.
And so my father always made sure they were good, legible, nice autographs. And he told the other guys, I don't care how long we sit here signing autographs, I'm not going any faster.
And that was before.
And of course, nobody argues, but no one's like going to argue with him. Say, hurry up, Harley.
Yeah. Who's going to argue with Harley? And that was before you were spending $200 for a nosebleed seat, right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Ron, we need to tell him about the Ribera and the autographs.
Oh yeah. So actually I have it. I have the picture here.
I sent these to you guys digitally if you want to try to get them in there.
Yeah, of course.
Now for our younger interview, we know what it is, but for our younger interview or younger listeners, sorry, Justin, explain to our younger guys what Ribera is, because that was a big deal, especially in the 70s and 80s.
It's a great photo.
Look, I'll explain it in a second, but you got to look at the autographs real close. See how messy they are?
Yeah.
Bronwyne, if you hold it. Well, no, my dad tried to sign Dynamite Kid, and Tommy, what did he sign, Bronwyne? 7-time what?
Well, they had a few wobbly pops that day.
That steak wasn't the only thing served at Ribera that evening.
And they decided it'd be funny if they signed as each other. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So Harley wrote Dynamite Kid, and it's a little sloppy because I think he didn't know how to spell dynamite.
had no idea. He didn't know how to spell cat.
And then my dad wrote 7 times fuck of shit. Full of shit. It looks like
full of shit.
Full of shit. But then he was supposed to sign it Harley, but then he wrote the kid because he forgot he was supposed to sign it.
So who was he signing this for?
I guess themselves.
And then so how did
probably
it, how
for
did
the
it
bar
come,
tab?
How did it
come back to you?
I have no idea.
Yeah, because I want to get a copy of that. That's hilarious.
I have no idea. My mom would know. Maybe he brought it home.
That's an incredible piece of history.
Yeah, normally those autographed Ribera Steakhouse, the wrestlers, they leave them there. I mean, it's the whole place. But yeah, that's really cool. You got to bring that. I just think it's funny that my dad they were drunk enough that my dad tried to spell dynamite, and kid thought forgot he was Harley Race.
Yeah.
Correct.
Ribera Steakhouse is been since the 60s. It's a steakhouse that the wrestlers started going to in Tokyo.
Yes.
Exact reason I don't really know. Maybe steakhouse in Japan gets sick of raw fish and hey, a steak. And ever since then, it's just been one of those meccas where you're made in the wrestling business if you get a picture taken at Ribera Steakhouse in Japan.
Especially if you get a jacket.
Yeah.
If they gave you a jacket, that was as good as a championship belt.
Oh God, there's photos of Tommy and my dad wearing the same shirts. They look like it's like, oh my God.
Oh, was that
600 pounds worth of twins?
Do either of you know, is that still a thing? Is Ribera still held as this big thing in today's age? Yeah.
Attila Khan was just there a couple weeks ago. Before, it was 2 weeks before. Last weekend was 2 weekends ago was St. Louis. Anyway, he was in Japan, and he sent me a picture from Ribera.
It's really cool to hear this generation of wrestlers talk about those jackets, because I'm sure when your dads were getting them, they didn't really think much about it. Oh, thanks for the jacket. We're hammered.
I know we had 7 of them.
And now people are going there because they're like, oh man, Harley had the jacket, Dynamite had the jacket. We need our jacket.
I can picture guys like Kevin Owens or the guys from FTR, those kind of guys. I can picture honoring that stuff, really wanting a Ribera jacket. You know?
Yeah,
that's so cool.
It was a status symbol, especially when if you went over there your first time, you came back, you always wear your Ribera jacket in the dressing room.
Now, did the colors of jackets mean something, or was it just different?
No, just
that's
different.
A good question,
yeah. They were usually black and red. Yeah. We had yellow and black and blue and oh God, I don't know. This is 40, 30 years ago. But yeah, they had different colors.
Now, this is a question I'm sure.
In fact, when I lived there, when I went to university in Japan, I was there. My dad wasn't. I was there by myself. One of the promoters, or one of the, I shouldn't say promote, office boys, took me to a Ribera because the owner, I can't remember his name, of Ribera wanted to meet me without my dad, or he just thought it was cool that another generation of races was eating there.
Is it a chain or is there only one?
No, there was one.
There's only
just
one.
the one.
Now. There was one in Tokyo. I think there's two now. There's one in Tokyo and one in Osaka.
Okay.
You use a fork, Justin?
What? Did I use a fork? Hell no, I'm not trying to cut it. I mean, the steak was this big. I mean, he gave me one of the steaks he gave the wrestlers. And I'm looking at this thing going, good God. I'm using a chainsaw.
Is that a
yes,
deep cut,
I did use a
Bronwyne?
fork. I was not about to try to cut that thing with chopsticks.
Is that a bit of a deep cut of that famous picture of your dads together, Bronwyne?
Yes. Yeah. I guess Harley didn't know how to use chopsticks.
Oh, that photo?
Yeah. Eating?
Oh, he knew. He just wouldn't.
Sounds about right.
Hell am I gonna eat with you goddamn pieces of wood? Give me a fork.
Now, this is a question.
I'm literally the same. I'm not very good at talking.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
This is a question I'm sure you've both been asked several times, but I want to ask you here on the show. Bronwyn, this question almost doesn't apply to you now because we're seeing the Dynamite doll. We're seeing you do stuff in the business now. We're seeing you work with your cousins and stuff like that, which is really cool. But Justin, is there something? Why aren't you doing this today? Why did you not become a wrestler? Was it not something you were interested in? Did your father talk you out of it? Is there a reason you didn't go down that road?
Yeah, that was never an option for me.
Never an option.
When they made those decisions was in the late 70s and early 80s. Dad was working 300 plus days a year, nights a year, traveling another couple weeks just to get to these places all over the world. I mean, all over the East Rim, Far East, South Pacific. I mean, when Mom and I were with him in all these places, Samoa, then Europe and all that over there. He's the only champion to ever defend the title on every continent except Antarctica.
Really? That's very cool. I didn't know that.
And if they'd have let him, he'd have went there and found a penguin to wrestle or something.
Yes.
Bronwyn, how have you been enjoying doing all these conventions that you've started to get out there and doing? We're seeing you pop up more and more. You're bringing your dad's memorabilia, hearing the stories. Is that something that you just really enjoy doing?
Yes. So that is what I want to be doing, and that is the direction I'm going. And I'm really happy and excited that those things are starting to pick up, and I'm starting to get more of those types of bookings. So yeah, I'm really excited and I love it. I think it fits me perfectly.
And you have so much of your.
I would echo that with, I mean, my whole existence right now is to make sure that my dad's legacy stays alive.
Yeah.
I believe that it's the least I could do for what our fathers did for us. I mean, and Bronwyn can probably attest to this. What would have been really weird at my house is if my dad showed up at 6 o'clock in the evening for dinner.
Right.
That would have been weird. Dad not home for a couple months. That was normal. But what are you doing here at dinner at 6?
Showing up with Andre the Giant, that's a Sunday. But not showing up at all, that's not weird. And that is how our lives differ, sir.
No.
Well, you guys both have, been around the business a lot now, and you know a lot of the current wrestlers or even wrestlers from your parents' eras. Do you have any favorite stories that wrestlers have come up and told you about your dads? That you can tell on the air, maybe?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hey, this is Uncensored Podcast. Go for it.
I'm writing a book called "Don't Tell Your Mother" because I was usually there.
That's a great
title. I was going to bring that up near the end. We talk about wrestling books all the time, and there's some really good titles out there. We were just talking to Brian about his book. Truth Be Told with 2 E's is a great title. But I think Don't Tell Your Mother is probably one of the most unique and just greatest titles for a book I could ever imagine.
I'm trying
Because
to
it
incorporate
makes
others
sense.
besides. I'm trying to incorporate others besides wrestling fans. I mean, you see
Sure.
that book, the
Yeah.
title of that book. Everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, I remember when my dad and I, or my mom and I," and she said, "Don't tell." So
Yeah.
everyone can relate.
Yeah,
But
exactly. It's a great title, and you're right. It'll make anybody want to pick that up and be like, what was that? I think it was a blog a few years ago. Some guy had shit my dad says,
oh,
and it flew off because people are like, yeah, well, I can relate with that because my dad says weird shit too.
yeah.
So that kind of title, it's going to grab wrestling fans and non-wrestling fans alike.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's kind of funny because I'll do podcasts now and I'll tell a story that's going to be in my book, and I'll talk to my mom later, and she'll be like, "You guys did what?"
Yeah.
I'm 54 years old. I'm like, "Mom, he didn't say tell you when you're 35. He said
He
don't
said,
tell
"Don't
you."
tell your
I never
mother."
did.
You kept your
But
word.
yeah,
Mm.
hey, if she's reading it in the book, you're not telling her. She's just reading it. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Sorry.
speaking of mothers, though, Bronwyn, let's take a minute and give some flowers to your mom too, because she is such an
Yeah.
incredibly strong woman, a great role model, I'm sure, for you. And even I've never met her or spoken to her, but just watching her and seeing how she has preserved your dad's legacy and been so strong through the hard times and been a great role model for you. Can we talk a little bit about your mother's role and what you do today as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, she'll love this. I'll make sure she watches. She um she's super supportive of everything that I do. She absolutely loves wrestling, always did because she was a part of it, back in, well, before I was even born. So she knows the kayfabe era. She knows everything. She's got all the stories. So anything that I do or anywhere that I take her, like she's the one with all the knowledge and the stories. So I'm like, I feel like she's very powerful in everything that I do because I'm like, yeah, I'm my dad's daughter, but a lot of the things that I get asked, like I wasn't there for it. My mom actually lived, so she's super cool that way and very, very strong woman as well. So
And you said she does a hell of a Stu Hart impersonation too, right?
yeah, actually she did one on Ben's podcast that we did on Saturday.
Oh,
So you'll have to
I've been
Oh, does she
waiting.
really? I didn't
I've
know
been
that.
waiting to
That's
hear
awesome.
that.
do like all the parts.
He had a
I,
unique way to speak, that's for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
still waiting to hear yours, Bronwyn. Every time I get you on, 4 times now, I'm gonna
Can't,
ask you.
can't.
I'll get you one time, bro. When you come on for the seventh time, I'm gonna get the Stu Hart out of you. All right.
You do a good Stu Hart. You do good Stu Hart too?
No, I don't.
Oh.
No,
Tyler, we've probably had at least 6 or 7 Stu Hart impressions on this show. Do you remember who's your favorite? Would it probably be Johnny Devine? He had a great one.
Johnny Devine did a great Stu Hart. We had a laugh when we interviewed Paul the Butcher Vachon, and he
Oh,
did a Stu Hart impersonation, but he already sounds kind of like Stu at that point before he passed away because he had like the way he
Seems like
talked.
my dad did an imitation to him too.
I feel like Stu and Dusty are like the big two that people love to do impersonations of.
I would have loved to hear
Dusty had
Harley
that
do it.
lift.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta do that lift.
and Stu's got like the little like the pauses, right? Like
Yeah.
all the
uh,
hearts do that.
but Harley had the famous one too, and my favorite Harley Race story that I hear people tell is I think Ric Flair is the first one that I've heard told this. He goes when you're working with Harley and he goes up and then somebody wants to talk to him about what they're gonna do for the match tonight and da 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 da, and Harley goes cigarette, the famous
Oh, here
cigarette.
I'll tell it.
Yeah, please,
Yeah, you know
please.
the story.
He was actually wrestling Kurt Hennig, and Kurt was brand new. And of course, Dad had been with his father forever, Larry. So Kurt and I'll do my best. This is Ric Flair imitating my dad and Kurt, and I won't do it. So Kurt comes up to this is Rick imitating. Hi, Mr. Race. What are we gonna do for a finish? Dad goes, "What's your finish, kid?" High knee off the top rope. I'll move. Okay. Yes, sir.
My favorite. My
Tyler
favorite.
has probably that's his favorite Harley Race story, and I think he's told that story at least 3 times on this show.
Oh,
Because he loves that story. I didn't think that story could get better, but now we've had Justin Race tell that story on this show. I am in seventh heaven right now. I am so happy.
Yes, I will be clipping that and putting that out as its own feature
well,
to highlight
Rick
forever.
told Rick told another one. Rick was pretty new, and Dad body slammed and suplexed Andre in the same match. Rick went running up to him after the match. He said, "Did you ask Andre if you could do that?" What? But body slam him and suplex. I said, "Did you ask him?" Why the hell would I ask? Well, he said he just did it. I mean, he allowed you to do it. He wanted, I don't ask. I'm Harley Race.
Yes.
Another thing
Everyone
that
always telling me, everyone always wants to tell you about how Andre would help him and whatever. Hell, Andre didn't want to be up there anybody more than anybody else. First time Dad had him over here like this, whole time Andre was up there. Boss, put me down. Boss, put me down. My dad said, "Shut up, you big son of a bitch. Someone's got to take a picture of this."
And it was probably Bill after.
Yeah,
more
that's a
than
photo.
likely. More than likely.
Bill's
Well,
fun.
both your dads also had incredible careers in Japan as well, and we'll start with Bronwyn on this one because I mean when you think about pioneers in Japanese wrestling, you think about the Dynamite Kid and you think about
100%.
Tiger Mask and just everything that they did together. Would you say that that's probably what you get asked about the most about your dad is his matches with Tiger Mask or
It kind of depends. Yeah, it would be maybe it depends if they're in a tag team or not. But yeah, a lot of Tiger Mask fans for sure. They study those matches, or if they're in a tag team, it's gonna be British Bulldogs. So
Of course.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know, Tiger Mask, he had such respect for your dad. I know there's it's a
Those were the
very
most athletic matches I'd ever
it
seen.
changed everything.
You're not wrong.
You wouldn't see
Tom and Tiger Man. I mean, those guys. I mean, nowadays they're like more like acrobat, ballot. I don't know. Somebody called it Cirque du Soleil wrestling or something. What they do now. But what her dad in Tiger Mask did had the energy, but there was meaning to the energy. There
Thank
was
you.
meaning to the
Yes.
moves. It wasn't just high octane, high
Mhm.
energy jumping all over the ring like Mexican jumping beans. There was purpose to what they did.
absolutely. You wouldn't see a guy like a Will Ospreay today if it wasn't for a Dynamite Kid back then.
Yeah.
He was really the first one.
I just made friends with the current Tiger Mask, so he's the fourth Tiger Mask. And that
Oh,
was a really cool connection as well. And he is going to gift me a mask, so I'm super excited about that.
That is
Wow. Yeah. That's cool.
incredible. Wow.
I
You're
couldn't
gonna
ask for,
wear it.
I'll probably like put it in a nice case and do something
Wear
nice.
it and scare your cat.
I'll just think I'm his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Justin,
so
how scared do you think Randy Orton was when he was told, "Hey, tonight you got to spit in Harley Race's face"?
oh God.
He was apologizing long before it ever happened. In fact, I think his
Love
father
that.
told him he damn well better apologize before
Yeah.
it happens.
It's because
But
Bob
I
was
know
probably
Randy. Randy's a good guy. I like him. But yeah, that was one of the more that was about as far as my dad had let it go. I mean,
Sure.
that's not you can have promos and you start spitting on people. That takes it to a whole nother gross level that isn't professional, isn't, you
Mhm.
know, not what we're going for here. It's
that
not family entertainment. We don't spit on people.
that did really help solidify Randy as a big deal as well, though, and you
That's
Especially
know
why
with
he
that
did it.
legend killer gimmick. Yeah.
the Legend Killer gimmick, and you know Harley Race. Everybody knows you don't tug on Superman's cape, you know, and Harley Race was Superman at that point, and you know Harley had such a great history with Bob Orton as well, so that was kind of a cool
Senior
for
and junior.
exactly right, and that was a
But
cool
you got to
for
remember though that the spitting out, none of that happens without Harley's okay.
Right.
absolutely
Yeah.
Vince isn't going to tell him what to do. He told Vince what to do.
100% he did.
Yeah.
um.
Vince and Hogan had their little bromance going on, but Harley, they were
Is,
scared to death of my dad.
is that story now? Can I get confirmation from you? Because I always hear the urban legend and the story of Harley showing up in the dressing room to confront Hogan when they ran Kansas City. Is
He
that true?
showed
Did
up,
he?
but he didn't have a gun.
No.
No, he just walked up, walked into the back, and once all the wrestlers in the room saw it, everything just went silent. And Terry was facing the other direction. Dad just went up behind him and slapped him on the ribs so damn hard and knocked him over. And he lands on the ground. He looks up. He looks who just slapped him, and he just starts backpedaling through the dressing room on his ass. That was pretty much all of it. He was scared the shit out of Hogan.
Well, while we start to wind things down here, I do have to ask because both your dads have had legendary feuds with the greatest wrestlers in the world, and I think wrestling fans, wrestling historians have an idea of what we think are their greatest opponents. But I want to know if you ever heard otherwise from the horse's mouth. Justin, yourself, I think most fans would consider Ric Flair to be your dad's greatest opponent. Bronwyn, I think the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation is solidified in stone. But I'll start with you, Bronwyn. Did your dad ever tell you otherwise? Did your dad ever, talk to you and say, actually, as much as I love the Hart Foundation, it was these guys who I consider to be the best?
It would be Tiger Mask. Those are his favorite matches for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
that makes sense.
But he loved working the Hart Foundation as well, of course. They all grew up together, trained together. They were family. So they had like insane chemistry. But yeah, he loved Japan.
That makes a lot of sense. Justin, do you think Rick was your dad's guy, or was there somebody else that
Oh,
you
his, uh, I'd say probably Terry Funk.
Oh yeah,
Famous match right here in our hometown of Toronto. Your dad won
damn
the
right.
belt. Your dad won the belt against Terry in our hometown of Maple Leaf
Mhm.
Gardens.
With the Indian Deathlock.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
believe me, that hurts.
I can only
He
imagine.
put it on me enough times in my life that he put it on me with his arm and my legs and break
That
my legs.
that's why I'm so glad that Scott D'Amore is really bringing back wrestling tradition to that arena, to Maple Leaf Gardens
Yeah, he
with
just ran
Maple
it.
Leaf Pro, because not only is it is the new school of wrestling in there, but at the same time it brings back the tradition of that building for us as Canadians, as people that grew up with Maple Leaf
Still doesn't
wrestling.
have the boxing ring in it, does it?
No, they
No,
got rid
no,
of
they
the
bring
old
their own
boxing
ring,
ring.
but they did have the
That's what
ramp.
Dad used to complain
Yeah.
about. We're there and in the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, wrestling in boxing rings with no
Yeah.
turnbuckles and getting thrown into those non-turnbuckles that just two pieces of rope come together in a metal junction and getting thrown into that.
Well,
Didn't
not,
tickle.
I think Bronwyn, you could probably agree with this as a fellow Canadian here. The two most famous arenas in Canada, in my opinion at least, Maple Leaf Gardens and the Calgary Pavilion, right?
Yeah, for sure. Have you been to the pavilion, Justin?
When I was a kid, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been up there a few times. But Dad was what do you call it? Not the captain or the co-chair, whatever, of the Calgary Stampede once.
Yeah, he did the
Okay.
parades. Yeah, they did the
Yeah.
parade. Absolutely.
Rode on the back seat of the Cadillac and went through the parade and whatever. They gave him this big, huge, 10, what do they call them, 10-gallon hats, Stetson.
Yeah. You would
My
have been like
dad's
the
head
Grand
was a
Marshal or something.
10-gallon hat,
Yeah.
especially with the afro. I mean, he puts his hat on, and good God, what's that? Yosemite Sam
Yeah.
anointed him with a big, huge hat on, and that's what he looked like.
Oh, we're getting ready to wind down. Brahman, I have one more question for you, and then I'll turn it over to Mike, and then I'll start to bring it home after that. But Brahman, your dad, very notorious for being a big prankster, a big ribber in the back. Do you have any favorite stories that have been told to you about some of the mischief that your dad liked to cause back? We heard Justin talk about a little bit earlier with getting people to grip Harley's hand. Do you have any favorite rib stories from your dad?
I don't know if I do, but I'm really liking, connecting with Justin and like learning all these stories, hearing all these stories between our dads. Some of them
Yeah.
for like some of the ribs back that he used to do. not something I'm totally into. So it's different. It's a different culture, different lifestyle. The locker room today is a little bit different. So, but for me, like as a kid, he used to like pranking me with his teeth. So I thought he was magic because they were knocked out right after Jacques Rougeau punched them out or whatever. Another story. He had like a little retainer with teeth, so he would move them up and down. But I was so little, I didn't know it was a retainer, so I thought my dad was magic. And
That's awesome.
I had like a psychic reading on Friday. And when first thing she brought up about my dad, she was like, is he missing his front teeth or something? And
Wow.
I was like, yes. And I always think about how he like pranked me with his teeth.
Wow, that's
The,
awesome.
I love that story just because just a personal story. My first interaction with a real wrestler when I was, I think I was only about 15 or 16, I was offered to have dinner with Luke and Butch at the Bushwhackers. And Bushwhacker Luke, during the dinner, thought it'd be funny. He just went like this for a minute. He came back and he doesn't have his teeth anymore.
Oh God.
Freaked me right out. So that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's
But then
hilarious.
later in life, he had dentures as he was older. No more retainer. But I think it was just a temporary thing. They were just like a retainer he'd pull in and out. Yeah.
That's great.
And also, I'm a mom, so that's why I'm not much of like a prankster. I'm like one of those.
Mike, you got one more you wanna get
Yeah.
in there? I
Oh
know there's a
man,
lot to
one
choose
one
from.
more. I know.
Oh, we can do it again sometime again.
This has been a
100%.
blast.
Yes, 100%. I love this, and I love this concept. I'm glad this worked, and we really want to do this again.
Me too.
I guess you both have mentioned the locker room today and wrestling to the state of wrestling today, how different it is from your dad's days. And it is a lot different, but there's still a lot of the same. The kids who are in there, not all of them, but some of them, a lot of them still do love the sport, and they're trying to, do their best to honor professional wrestling. There's still a lot of great wrestlers in there.
Hmm.
So either one of you, or both of you, I mean, do you watch the product and you see a wrestler and you say to yourself, my dad would have liked this guy?
I think my dad would have liked Seth Rollins.
Really?
I
That's
think so.
interesting. I like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think he would have respected his talent and his ability. Interestingly enough, we just talked about this, but Randy Orton,
Of course. Yeah.
he tries to keep it as old school as he can,
Yes.
and still make the headquarters happy.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah,
That's a
that'd
great
be
answer.
bad. Yeah.
Bronwyn, is there anybody you see and you think like that? You're like, my dad would have been a fan of this guy.
I would say Will Ospreay.
Okay. Yeah, that tracks. That makes sense.
You got to meet him, right?
He did kind of on the cruise. He was
Oh,
pretty.
that's right.
He was pretty drunk.
Well, like the one time he was drunk, and then it was just like at the karaoke bar. He loved karaoke, and so he was singing karaoke every night. So I was like, "Oh my God, there's Will Ospreay," because I was like, "That's my favorite wrestler currently." I wanted to get a picture with him, and then he was really drunk. And then the next day, I actually stood in the line to get a photo with him. So he was probably hungover, and then he was like, "Hello, hun," and I'm like, "Oh, do you remember me?" Because I saw him the night before, and he's like, "No, I don't." Like,
Are
oh,
you
okay.
in?
Because he acted like he knew me, but that's just his job, right? So I was like,
Of
okay, and
course.
then Dynamite's daughter, and then he
Yeah.
actually was like, oh my God, and he pulled off his glasses to actually look at me. And then the photographers were taking photos, and they're like, this is the first time all morning he's taken off his sunglasses. So this must be a special moment.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
cool.
Speaking of people who work for AEW, are you in constant contact at all with Tom? How's he doing over there?
He's doing great. I mean, he's
Yeah.
constantly somewhere. So I haven't seen him on AEW lately, so I don't
Yeah,
really
that's
know.
kind of why I asked. I just didn't want to be so blunt about it. But is he? But when you talk to him, everything is, he's
Yeah.
still in.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
always somewhere. I think he
yeah,
just posted something like this week with AEW's logo on it. So
that's great.
He was just
it
in
could be
our
a,
neck of the woods, yeah.
it could be a visa issue because he's from England,
Well,
and yeah,
yeah.
I'm not. Something
Especially
I
working.
He was just down here in Toronto a couple weeks ago. He's down here like he's working everywhere. He was here last weekend working Super Kicks, Mike, in Toronto.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't see that
Yeah.
card. Nice.
Yeah,
Very good.
he's like what how proud you must be seeing Tom just
I was also
like
going to say my dad would also be a big fan of his nephews,
Of
Tom
course he
and
would.
yes, absolutely. Mark is he still doing the boxing or is he coming back over to the wrestling now?
he's doing both.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy too, and I'll specifically hone in on Tom right now, just since he's been more not doing both or whatever, but with AEW, you watch Tom in the ring, and it's just a complete throwback to watching your dad in the ring. The
100%.
mannerisms, the way he snaps his clothesline, the snap suplex, even just to his look, the hair slicked back and the
And
face,
the
like.
noise he makes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
everything.
yeah. Yeah.
That's got to be such an awesome feeling for you to see
Yeah.
that legacy get carried on. Not only are you carrying on the legacy, but you're also seeing him carry on the legacy. Like you just must be so proud of that.
I am. Yeah, I'm super proud that, you know, they're wrestling because I'm clearly not. So
Hey, but you know what though? You've had a good run in Alberta. You've had a
You
good
did.
run doing your Dynamite Doll stuff and the Manson family stuff. I've been following what you're doing, Bronwyne. You do some really awesome stuff. You've got your OnlyFans booming, you've got your Patreon booming. You've told me about some projects behind the scenes that we won't bring up yet because it's not time yet, but there is a lot of awesome stuff coming your way. Love seeing you hit the conventions up. And Justin, you're
Mhm.
doing incredible stuff with your dad's legacy. You're doing the conventions, the cauliflower. I know you were on Monday Night Raw a couple weeks ago. I mean, you guys just
How'd you
I
know
hope
that?
well, I know a guy that knows a guy. I hear some things.
Well,
But
Combs, the guy that runs the backstage, he used to
Mhm.
be a referee at my dad's school.
oh
Oh, no
wow.
kidding. Yeah. Nice.
So that's why I went back in the back and talked to some of the guys in the back and whatever.
So that means we got to get Justin to get into Triple H's here to start getting Dynamite into the Hall of Fame, right? This is a whole
That's
full
true.
circle thing.
I told Bronwyn that Triple H idolized my father. I've known
100%.
H.
Yes.
I've
Yes, he
known
did.
H since I was a very young
You
kid,
could see that just
and
by
I
his
could.
wrestling style. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he took after it. In fact, when Dad was inducted into the WWE, he mentioned Rick and then he mentioned H because H did the high knee just like
Mhm.
he did, and he's like, you got people like him emulating stuff that I did that you've done something.
Exactly.
He used
But yeah, I would
he
like
used the
to.
Indian Deathlock at
Yeah,
WrestleMania 19. He pulled out the Indian Deathlock.
yeah. I'm gonna try to get hold of H for Brown. Yes.
Yeah, let's start the campaign. It's time. It
It
is
is
Yeah, I
time.
time to
agree.
get the
I
Dynamite
agree.
Kid into the Hall of Fame.
Either
Leave
Dynamite
the
Kid
politics
or the
aside.
Bulldogs, one or the other. Yeah, for sure.
Well, the wrestler, they get the front offices nowadays get so involved in politics and crap like that.
Hmm.
And well, here, this is what I was taught. We're watching a match one night. Dad had, he was the main event. He was just kind of waiting around, and we were on the stage, and we were poking through the curtains, looking at that. And I just gotten old enough. I was like, Dad, how do you get paid? And he said, well, sometimes cash, back then cash. Sometimes check or whatever. I said, well, like from who? From like Bubba, Giant Bubba, or Sam Mushnick, or who do you get checks from? He said, come here for a second. And I said, all right. He said, look out there. I did. He said, you see those people? Everyone's going crazy at their signs and everyone's fanatics and nuts and whatever. I said, yeah. He said, those people signed my paycheck.
Yeah. Love that.
So that attitude is almost non-existent in the wrestling world anymore.
yeah.
Those guys,
Speaking,
they're the ones with the autographs you can't read. And why are you in my space? This is my space. I'm an important person. Stay, Your dad, my dad, they'd give an autograph to anybody. They'd set their bags down and stop their lives for a moment to give somebody an autograph. And now these guys nowadays, they don't care. They think the fans owe them something.
speaking
Yeah.
of those people being the fans and the people that sign those checks, they'll bring me to my very last question. I'll let Tyler bring it home. if a lot of our listeners, we have a mix. We have old school guys like us. We have very young listeners. We have people from all over the world listening to this show. For the younger listeners, for the guys, the kids like my son and the kids are just getting into wrestling, either both of you, if you could choose one match to say this is the Harley Race match you should watch, this is the Dynamite Kid match you should watch to introduce you to these wrestlers, do you have a match you would pick?
Well, probably just anything. My dad and Tiger Mask. You really
That's exactly the answer I would expect from you. I wouldn't expect anything else. Yeah.
June 10th, 1983. Dad beat Flair at the Kiel Auditorium for the 7th world title.
Wow.
That is the right answer.
Thus beating Lou Thesz's record.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and
yeah.
For me, for both of you guys, I really loved Harley and Flair at the first Starrcade in the cage. I thought that was such a cool moment. And my favorite Dynamite Kid match
in '83 when he passed the torch.
Yeah. And for Dynamite, I love a deep cut, and I've talked about it on this show many times. It's the British Bulldogs against Joe and Dean Malenko in Japan.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm a tag team guy. Like that's my stuff. That's my favorite tag team match of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, he liked working them too.
Yeah, those are my picks there. And
go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to leave you guys with a thought. I'm just imagining this in the dressing room. You've got big old Davey, you got Tommy, and you got my dad. All three of them are speaking English, but we discussed about my dad's spelling and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't understand a word those two said. And they could understand him, but he blamed them for speaking terrible English or whatever. And they're like, "We're speaking the Queen's proper English, you sot." Oh, what the hell you two are saying?
Oh my god, I love it so much.
Oh yeah, they'd been acting and it was just like, it was funny. All the other guys would watch because my dad would argue with them about what they're saying.
How many people do you think saw those three walk into a bar and immediately just turn around like, I'm out of here?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, no thank you. Well,
thank you.
I mean, guys, I could do this for another 2 hours. This has been so fun. Yeah. We've flown by on our time here. First of all, I want to thank you guys for taking your time out of your night to do this with us. This was a blast. Second of all, as a wrestling fan, because I will always be a wrestling fan at heart, I want to thank both of you guys for sharing your fathers with us. Yeah. Because, you guys sacrifice a lot as children, and I'm just appreciative for you guys allowing us to be involved with your father's lives. And I hope that you both know that you're both doing your father's legacies proud. I love following both of you guys on social media. I love seeing all these photos and memories and stories come up.
Yeah.
You guys are doing a beautiful job with it, and it's just wonderful. So thank you for everything you guys do to keep your family's legacies alive.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you. That was a very nice thing of you to say. Very nice of you to say. I think that's what our goal is our fathers did a lot for us, and the least we can do is make sure that everyone remembers them.
Absolutely.
They changed the industry in their respective ways.
100%.
And they set the norms for the industry that'll never be accomplished, but they're there. Guys know what it's supposed to look like, and they're trying to emulate what they used to do back then. They just didn't work out very well.
Absolutely.
But they'll learn, but they definitely have some good instructors to watch.
Well, Justin, I hope that this is not the last time we have you on Count It Out.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
And Bronwyne, when you come on for the 5th time, maybe we invite your mom along. Maybe we invite your mom along for the trip. I got to hear the Stu impersonation.
Oh, it's not happening.
I'm gonna get your mom to
my mom.
Yeah, I want to hear.
We'll both bring our moms on.
Oh, there you go. Now that's the next one. We're gonna have the 6-person booth here. Both your moms on.
At that point, you and I could just leave.
I'll just sit
Yeah.
back. I'll just sit back and listen.
Just
at
push
that.
record and go do what you want to do.
That's
Exactly.
it. That's it. Mike, take us home, my friend. Thank you again, guys.
There's nothing
Thank
I
you
can
so
say right
much.
now that Tyler, you didn't already say so eloquently. You took the words out of my mouth. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you for sharing these stories with us, and I hope to do it again with both of you. Until next
Very
time,
welcome.
everybody, do what I always tell you to do. Hit the subscribe buttons. Not only here, go to Justin's page, subscribe over there. Go to the Dynamite Dolls pages, subscribe over there. If you haven't already done it, like, rate, comment, all that stuff. It helps us every single time you do it. And until next week, my friends, you have been counted out.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much. Nice to finally meet you, Justin.
Yes, it was nice to meet you too.